Welcome to Human Risk, a podcast dedicated to the understanding of human behaviour as a risk. Here's your host, Christian Hunt.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Now, what if the best way to improve cybersecurity or compliance or any other form of risk management wasn't another policy, training course or technology, but instead a board game? That's exactly the kind of question that my guest on this episode likes to ask. Jill Wick is a cybersecurity awareness consultant, business psychologist, podcaster and author whose work is pushing the boundaries of how organizations think about awareness, engagement and behavior change. And among her many innovations is a board game designed to help people understand cyber risk through conversation and interaction rather than traditional training. I first came across Jill on LinkedIn and I was immediately struck by her approach. Not just because she was talking about human behavior, which as you'll know is a theme that runs throughout everything we discuss on this podcast, but because of the creativity, energy and originality she brings to the challenge. In a field that often responds to problems with more controls, more rules, more training and more technology, Jill has spent years exploring a totally different question. How do we help people genuinely understand cyber risk and make better decisions? And that search has led her to draw on psychology, marketing, behavioural science, and even childhood games to create awareness programs that people actually want to engage with. Rather than treating security as a technical problem, she sees it as a human one. And what I really like about Jill is her willingness to experiment. She's constantly testing new ideas, challenging conventional thinking, and finding creative ways to connect with people on subjects they might otherwise ignore. While our conversation begins in the world of cybersecurity, the themes we discuss have relevance far beyond it. So whether you're interested in compliance, safety, conduct, operational risk, organizational culture, or indeed cybersecurity, there are plenty of lessons here about attention, learning, communication, and behavior change. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will too. It's my discussion with Jill Wick on the human side of cybersecurity. Jill, welcome to the Human Risk Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here because I can't remember when I discovered you on LinkedIn and I can't remember how, but I'm so pleased that I did because I love both what you do, but also the way that you do it. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about what that is? Tell us about you.
Sure. Hello to everyone. I am Jill and yes, I'm a bit active on LinkedIn, but I'm also just into cybersecurity awareness. I'm a cybersecurity awareness consultant. For those who don't know what cybersecurity awareness is, it's mostly to do trainings, e-learnings, or gamifications in companies. I'm also a business psychologist, so I studied psychology, but also economy, and because I'm very interested in the social engineering side of cybercrime and also the psychology of why we fall for scams and for cybercrime.
And so when we talk about this, in very simple terms, this is about people not falling for phishing emails. This is about people not clicking on things they shouldn't. It's that kind of thing that has knock-on consequences. And so you're really helping to manage the humans within organizations that might, I guess, very simply click the wrong button.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm trying to do, and also to make companies aware how important it is to make awareness. So I'm doing kind of awareness for awareness a little bit, more high level scene, yes.
And so you talked about your background in psychology, which I always think is fascinating. How did you then get into the cyber side of it? Because psychology, naturally, people tend to think of it as sort of dealing in the sort of therapy side of it or the kind of more medical side of it. What was it that attracted you about the technology side?
Well, it was the other way for me. I only studied business psychology because I was already into cyber. I was working over 10 years in a fraud department of credit cards, and I helped to prevent fraud on credit cards as a fraud analyst. And I saw all this fraud and cybercrime world exploding. Firstly, it was a long time ago, or 10 years ago, it was mostly about physical fraud. The credit cards were just copied while you used them. For example, in the USA, a lot of cards get copied and then someone withdraws money. But then after a few years, it started to shift to more online fraud. And I saw that the people, or I heard them speak on the phone with me, and they told me I didn't know how this works, and I didn't even know that there are scams like this. And that's why I got more and more interested in this side of scams, and I was wondering what happens to us, why are we clicking, how do they get us to click? And then I decided to study business psychology, and so it was the other way for me.
Wow. And I think this is really interesting because lots of people see this problem and the solution is not to think about the psychology. The solution is to kind of put more controls in place or we're just going to tell people not to do it.
Mhm.
And what you've done, and this is where I love this because this parallels with my work, is you've gone and said, if we want to manage this risk, this is about people doing things we don't want them to do or not doing things that we do need them to do. And so if we want to do that, we need to understand why people do this. That's a really unusual take, right? So, yeah, I think it's really obvious, but that's not common approach. People tend to approach it like a logical problem.
Yes.
And actually, you're approaching it like I am as a human problem.
Yes, a lot of companies just think, well, these are the rules and you just have to adhere them. They tell them what to do and then they will do it. But of course, if they don't understand what the risks are or how they work and why they have to do it, they are not very motivated to adhere to the regulations and all the processes. And I mean, security usually is like a layer on top of all the other stuff that people have to do during their work time. And just all those getting those codes and complicated passwords and everything just takes more time. And if they don't really understand why they should do it, then they might find other ways to not do it and work anyway.
And one of the things I find really interesting, and I say this as somebody that used to work for a Swiss bank, is that this is not the sort of thinking I would expect in Switzerland. It's almost a very sort of British or American way of thinking about it. And so one of the things I love is that you've come from a country where, and I love Switzerland, by the way, so this is not a criticism, but it's a country where a lot of the things that you've talked about, sort of logical approaches to things, which is why things work so efficiently in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the sort of approach I was expecting from someone in Switzerland. And I don't know why, but that surprised me. And so I was delighted. Do you find that what you're doing is kind of slightly countercultural?
Yes, a little bit, yes. The Swiss companies are very hierarchical. Yeah, from top down, very, very much. They like regulations and rules and, yeah, then punishment after something happens. But I think it's an old way to go about security. And I mean, it doesn't work. I mean, you see, people are not behaving securely, they are clicking on links. Then why should we just go on with the same approach?
And the thing I find fascinating is the solution is often to do more of the thing that caused the problem. You know, so it's sort of like, well, they need more training.
Yeah.
Or more communication.
More
and I think what you
regulation.
brilliantly analyze is to sort of go, well, there's no point in doing more of the same thing that caused the problem.
Yes, I agree. Or more policies, or and instead of doing more policies, they could make them more clear so the people understand them. But no, we just add another AI policy or something. So, yeah, why not just check if the people are understanding what you want them to do and if they are motivated, and yeah, go about it a bit more psychological.
I love that because often I find that actually it shouldn't be more policies, it should be fewer. Like we want less of these things so that it's easier for people to manage. And the thing I really like about your approach is you look at this and say, how do we connect with human beings, right? How do we speak to the people? who, let's be honest, aren't interested in this subject.
Yes.
And I think I have this with compliance people, is often there is an assumption that everybody is interested in this subject, that everybody will understand it. And what I love is you've jumped that and you sort of go, we have to recognize that they don't understand this.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they probably don't care that much because they have lots of other things to do.
Yeah, when I started in a credit card company as a security awareness officer, then I got a lot of questions about the policies, and it was written very complicated. So we started to, if then do this, but as soon as we started, we recognized that our policies were contradictory. For example, sometimes it said here you can do this, and then sometimes you can't. And as soon as you want to really make it more clear and in an easy language, you recognize that your own policies are not really making sense. So you really, I think that that's very important to not always try to sound very smart, but to make it more comprehensible for just everyone.
And I always think that the policies are often written by experts
Yeah.
for experts. Officially, it's every employee should read this, but actually, to your point, is the language is often very technical,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of detail, and it kind of often doesn't tell you what to do. It just sort of tells you the theory of the thing, which is designed, I think, to it sort of answers the technical question, but it doesn't answer that human question of what do I do or not do.
Yeah. And if you read it, you don't feel like this is for you. You're like, I don't think this is written for me to read. This is just written because you have to check a box. And a lot of the security awareness is like this, I think.
And so what you do, and I think this is the first thing I discovered about you, is you've gone into, we talk about gamification,
Yeah.
but you've created an actual game. Tell us about the idea behind the game and then how it works.
The game is quite easy, understandable, and that's also the point for me. I saw a lot of gamifications or serious game stuff before, and I tested it, and I didn't want to introduce it to our employees because it was just complicated. And when you start to introduce the game, you have to explain it for maybe 30 minutes and then you can play. So that was my approach. I wanted something easy and everyone understands it from the start. So I took the snakes and ladder topic that everyone has played as a child, or a lot of people at least. And then I coupled it with a quiz format. And I mean, it's very easy understandable. And the quiz can be adjusted to the topics that you want to introduce. For example, in an onboarding, it's easier questions, or for more technical people, it could be more scenario based. You can adjust it. Yes, and the cool thing is just when we play it, usually there is a discussion, and that's where the learning happens. And almost every time someone says, okay, now I get why I have to have strong passwords, or now I get finally this question. So yeah, they were having this question in their head, but they were never able to ask it anywhere. They didn't have a person to talk to. And yeah, it's a very technical and digital topic, but the best thing to approach it is physical. That's a bit contradictory, but I think it works.
No, I love that. So there's several things in that I love. The first one I love is I loved your point about if a game takes 30 minutes to explain, you've ruined. There's no point in having the game because you've wasted time explaining something, and you've presented the topic in a complicated way because people then have to think about the game. So I love this idea if you've got, okay, let's do something that they already recognize, right? That's familiar.
Yeah.
And I love this idea of taking it back to a childhood game.
Yeah.
Because one, you can guarantee everybody knows the rules and has played this before. But two, what you're doing is putting people in a state of mind where they're more open to things, right? Because we're going back to pretending to be a child.
Yes.
And so I think that's really interesting.
And from the psychological perspective, it makes also sense because when we are in a state of positive emotions, we are more creative and we are more open to learn. And yes, then we can also take in the lesson better. The build and broaden and build theory.
And I also loved what you sort of said there is that the purpose of the game is to drive questions and discussions. And I think
Yes.
a lot of gamification is kind of like we better make it competitive, right? And we'll create. And the other reason I love Snakes and Ladders is we all know that it's not a game. It's not a game of skill, right? So it's not, you sort of don't sit there and have to work to, right, what happens.
Yeah.
And so you're using that as a vehicle for discussion. And so rather than, I've seen lots of people do games that become super competitive,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
People get very aggressive and sort of try and work out the tactics. It reminded me, I thought about this as a parallel. It's kind of like, it's the equivalent of having a coffee with someone. You create a construct. The coffee's not the point. The point is the conversation.
Yeah.
You've created a construct where you're allowing people to talk about a subject. And so the game doesn't become a distraction.
Yes.
It becomes an enabler.
Yes, exactly. There are places for gamifications. I also like gamifications. For example, Hookton. I don't know if you know it, but it uses the stars as a reward if you report a phishing email. And that's great. I mean, it works. It means that your reporting rate will go up to about 90% because everyone wants those stars and the dopamine level, and we know it works from social media. But it's not gonna last, and it's not gonna change their behavior fundamentally or make like this effect of, I get it now, or just in a discussion you can clarify some questions as well. But also the gamification is of course a good way to do other awareness stuff. But in this case, in this table game, it's a different approach, like you said, like just to set a good mood and take away a little bit maybe the fear as well of not getting it. If you start a game and it's so complicated, you are already like, oh, maybe I can't do this. And that's also a lot of the people are already quite scared of security and IT and all that technical stuff.
I think you're right. I think embarrassment and like I
Yes,
feel like I should know this, but I don't. Or you get training that sometimes they treat you like you're a small child, right? Like here, these people are idiots and we're going to tell the idiots what they're doing wrong. And so I think it's a really nice idea that you create this, it's kind of like a psychologically safe environment, right? It's because it's in the construct of a game, you're kind of allowed to ask dumb questions.
Yes, exactly. And if you don't know it, I mean, there are questions asked of you, and if you don't know it, for example, we had a person who was probably, she never really, she was very a beginner level, but then I was not telling her the solution. I was asking the group to help her. And the group then decided on an answer. And that's also very interesting interaction, I think. If the group starts to help one person, and if they are usually working together in an environment, it could lead to that, for example, this person knows now there are like 2-3 experts that she could ask in her daily life as well. And then they don't have to ask all the time just the CISO or someone. They can ask their peers as well. So that could have positive cultural effects as well.
The more I hear you talking about it, the game is just a vehicle to have conversations. And so you were just talking about what you do there. So there's a facilitation element to this, while you're not just kind of turning up and saying, here's a game, play it, right? You're very much driving the conversation.
Yes, that's a very important part of the whole thing, that you have this game master or a person who leads it and who has some background knowledge, or at least some manual where she can read off what is the correct answer and ask follow-up questions, perhaps. Why is that, if they have the correct answer, and just to lead on some discussions. That's the most valuable part about it, actually.
You mentioned this, right? So this is a physical game. So you're bringing in something very sort of childish from the. You're taking this
Yes.
into people's offices, right? What's the reaction when you walk in with this thing? Because it's kind of like the last thing you expect, and it reminds me at the end of term at school, we were always allowed to bring games in.
Oh, cool.
And so you reminded me, but I've seen some great photos of you showing up with this thing, and
Yes.
it's really cool for social media. But I just love this fact that you're turning up doing something that's a bit weird. What's the reaction you get?
Usually I love it because the people are very curious. That's just human. We are naturally curious, and they are coming up to the table and they're looking, and if I explain it, they get it really quickly. They're like, "Oh, now I get it. Now we can play." And they already take the dice. So this takes like 30 seconds, and they are at first they are like, "What is this?" Those little there are malware fields, and they're like coming closer, and yeah, then they get it really quickly. So it's very really easy, understandable.
Just love this idea of you showing up with something that doesn't belong in an office, right? It shouldn't
No.
be. It's the sort of thing people go. Google has that, right? There's like table football,
Yeah.
and so there's that element of fun, and you seem to have a lot of like your social media stuff. But even when I've had conversations with you, you clearly love what you do.
Yes. Yes, that's me. I really cannot pretend, or I cannot just do something for just the money aspect or something. I just have to really like what I do. And when I finally found this topic, because I hopped around in my past a lot, I was doing from artist. I was an artist. I did I studied different economy things. I was also a little bit into marketing. So yeah, I hopped around a lot. And finally, when I found this topic of cybercrime, I got really hooked. Very interested
In the
in
right way, because you could get hooked
yes.
on the crime side of it. You're hooked on the crime prevention.
I got fortunately on the right way, yes.
And you talked about some of those things you did in the past. What I also love about your approach is it's very creative.
Yeah.
So what you're recognizing is that in order to connect with humans and to understand humans, we have to kind of get into that creative space, because that's what taps into the kind of inner psyche. And it strikes me that creativity is a really important part of what you do.
Well, don't I don't know if I'm creative or not, but sometimes I might not be able to think like a normal person. That's why the people think I'm creative or something, but I am not even able to think like in the normal way. So that's why maybe they say it's creative. But sometimes I just am able to see patterns, or see another side of the thing, and that just the normal way doesn't seem to work. And I think in security awareness, you also have to have a lot of courage to just try something. And I don't know, I don't have any fear of trying out some new things. And if they go wrong, they go wrong. That's also a little bit about when you post, you have to go over the cringe mountain, right? That's and you just have to post, and then sometimes you post something that doesn't really have a good, I don't know, it's just no good, whatever. And you just go on. And yeah, I think this test mentality has to be a little bit stronger in the awareness field as well, because the CISOs, or I mean, there's also, they have to be responsible for the security, and if they are connected to games or play or whatever, they might not come across too serious and too, I don't know. I mean, their image could suffer if something is not cool or cringe or whatever, and that's why they might fear to test out too much or too many things. But I'm a pro. Test, just test it.
No,
Try it out.
I agree, because I think the people often think the risk is, well, we better just do it safe, right? Do the safe thing that we've
Yeah,
always done,
safe.
keep doing that. The thing that we can just, because if I experiment and it goes wrong, I'm going to look stupid.
Yes,
And my argument
exactly.
is always the opposite, which is to say, I think if you don't experiment, you have no idea what works and what doesn't. And people sometimes say, well, the topic is very serious, we need to get this right. And my
Yes.
argument is, because the topic is so serious, that's why we need to experiment. And if you looked at a different context, like advertising, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't, if you said, can I have £1 million to do an advertising campaign? And they say, well, how do you know this is going to work? And you'd say, we don't, we have no idea. Or it's what we did last time. You'd get
Yes.
fired.
Yeah.
But somehow in like compliance and security awareness, there's a kind of thing about, well, we'll do what everybody else is doing or what we've done before. There's a safety thing, ironically. And I think the interesting thing is that if you don't play in the way that you're talking, then you're never going to know what other options there are.
Yes.
And you might you're going to screw some things up, but it's better to screw some things up and learn than never learn anything.
Yeah. I don't know if you follow or if you know Alex Hormozy. He, in the last podcast that I heard of him, he talked about advertisers, and the most successful advertisers are those who do the most A/B testing. Of their A/B testing is like maybe make variants of some hooks and just a little small change, and then test it out a lot on a massive scale. And I think this is security awareness is kind of a marketing topic as well. And a lot of advertisers, I mean, when you look at Coca-Cola, for example, how many times have you seen exactly the same kind of marketing spot or colors or music that they associate with? They repeat it all the time, or Nike or whatever. They repeat their message all the time, and in security awareness, it is not different. You just have to really repeat it, and sometimes the people think we can just tell them that those are the rules and they will adhere it. But you have to remind them. It will not stick in the heads because they didn't get it maybe, or they forget it. I mean, they want to work. They don't want to think about those topics all the time.
And the thing that fascinates me about this, and I guess in my world in compliance, you can look at the opposite of sort of, you know, who are we up against? And so financial criminals are constantly spending their time working out how do we make things happen. And in a digital world, it's cheap to experiment, right? So they're just going to keep, and with AI, it's going to get easier and easier to run. So if the enemy is doing this, and the same will be true in the cyberspace, then we've got to respond in the same way. And so I think to respond to a dynamic problem with a kind of static solution isn't going to work. And so it just seems to me that the logical response is to do exactly what you're suggesting. Of they're playing with these things and trying. The way we meet that is to do the same thing.
Exactly. Amen.
One of the things I think is really interesting about what you do, and I'd like to think that I do the same thing, is a lot of it is you do things that are a bit different, which is not only teaching people ways of doing it, but you're also giving them permission.
Ah, that's true.
Because you're going out there and you're demonstrating that this is okay.
Yes.
Right? It is okay to experiment. It is okay to take risks.
Yes.
And so in a way, the way you market yourself and your business isn't just about teaching people the subject and how to present the subject. It's giving them permission to experiment.
It's true. Now you say it, I realize it a little bit.
But I
Yeah.
think that's like a superpower. And so this is why I wanted you on the show, because you're coming at this and with a genuine, you really want to solve this problem.
Yes.
And of course, we can't solve the problem entirely, but we may. And the only way we're going to do that is if we genuinely recognize what the problem is.
Yes. And I think what I really would love was to build a really nice community in the way that everyone really wants to be secure. I mean, and also that the companies are coming together more about, in this topic and agree on doing awareness more like a cultural thing and less just about some rules or trainings.
Well, I think there's something interesting there about I mean, on the one hand, you could say, well, look, if our company is very good on awareness, then we're lower risk we're lower risk of this than another organization. And so you could look at it like, imagine locks on doors. You could say someone with no locks is more vulnerable than someone with lots of locks. But I think there's something slightly interesting here, which is to say that actually, if we can all experiment and all try different things, then we can learn from each other.
Yes.
And so actually the risk that you take as an individual organization is reduced if everybody else is taking risks. So I don't think the argument about lock, we need to be better than them, which is often where the logic is the wrong way to look at this. Because actually, if you're learning and sharing, suddenly it's not just your experiments you're benefiting from, it's everybody else's.
Yeah. And I have also got a lot of like counter arguments, for example, to my posts about awareness and how important it is that IT will solve everything and you can solve it technical and you don't need all the training or the awareness stuff. And then I just think like, yeah, when we have the alarm in my house, I have the alarm, but I never use it, then it will not help me be more secure, right? So.
But I love those people that argue that, because there's two things that occur to me. Number one is we've seen that AI gets things wrong, right? And so the big flagship product for technology is making mistakes. So that's the first thing we know. And the second thing is we know that ultimately the world is changing and we need human intuition and judgment is always going to be important, because ultimately it's the clicking example, a human that's going to click on this thing. And so you want humans that are smart and on your side. And so even if you say technology solves the problem, it's still a good idea to have humans looking at this subject and being aware of it in case there's something you've missed. Or there's a situation where they could have done something, but they thought the technology had solved it. If you say the technology will solve everything, you actually make the humans riskier because the humans think the technology solved it.
Yes, that's actually an effect that really is a problem. If the people think they never receive phishing because the phishing filters are so good, then they will click on everything because they feel so safe. So yeah.
And but the other thing I find really funny about the kind of the trolls and the critics online is what I love is when you get that, it's awesome, because I just say, amazing, thank you, because you're helping to promote my post. So rather than I never take it, I sort of sit there and go, ridiculous criticism I quite like, because one, I think what you've described is it's a little bit fundamentalist, because I think technology has a really big role to play, but I think so do people, and we need both. And so it's not a case of people or technology, it's a case of people and technology. And so we should so there's no need to have that argument about you're wrong. It's like you are not the whole solution, but you are a key part of it, just as they with their technology are not the whole solution, they're just part of it. And so I look at that and laugh because I think it's a fundamentalist position. But the second thing, I love it because I'm like, well, thanks, you're just helping promote my stuff, right? So if you want to argue with me, that's just playing the algorithm. So keep going.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, not mad if they post something opposite. It means some people think about that like this, and maybe they feel threatened by awareness. But for me, it's also a topic that has to go together with technology, and yeah, is always not alone standing. You cannot just make everyone aware and then nothing happens anymore. It needs technology as well. But they have to use the technology. And if no one knows how to use a password manager, then you can make it as secure as you want, but it will not be used.
I love that point you made about you're creating awareness, because one of the things I always do when I do presentations for clients is there'll always be someone that complains or asks a question or criticizes.
Yeah.
And my clients always say things like, I'm sorry about them. And I'm like, I don't care, because they were listening. Right.
Yeah.
So even if they ask a stupid question, or it's not a question, it's a criticism, or they give negative feedback, they were paying attention, hopefully, on some level. And so the thing I think is lovely about the structure, about what you're doing there, is the game is a really good example of there are going to be some people who are never going to like the idea of a game. And it doesn't matter whether you can tell, you can prove it's successful. They just, it's an office. This is a serious place. This is a serious subject. But it doesn't matter, because even if you're getting them to think about it, so even if their brain is spending time thinking about the issue, that's better than their brain not thinking about the issue.
Yeah, true. It's also a way to make awareness.
One of the other things I love is you have a podcast, and so you interview some super interesting people. Now it's in German largely, but you've expanded and you've been doing you've had sort of British and American guests on. And tell us a little bit about the sorts of guests that you interview, because every time I see it, there's always super interesting people.
Yes. Well, my approach is to invite guests who make the listeners more secure in some way. Maybe there was one CIA agent who talked about psychological topics, how he manipulates, how he manipulated in the past his targets, or the other one also about talked about lying, the secret agent from the UK. But also I invite guests from the security field, or the next podcast will be about a forensic topic, about picture forensic, because the deepfake technology is getting a lot better. So I think it's important to know how to distinguish deepfakes in the future, or people from the police departments who might want to spread their word about security. And yes, that's my approach to make awareness in the public a little bit broader available. And usually it's in German, yes.
But it's very you as well, because it's also quite what underpins it. And the thing that I really noticed there is that one, you love the topic, right? So you're doing it, and we both know, right? If you don't enjoy it, there's no point in doing a podcast if you're not having fun doing it, because it's a lot of work.
Yes, you should know.
Yeah. It's true. People underestimate. I think it's just you just record it and put it out, right? There's a load more stuff that goes into it than that. But what I love is so one is I think that the fact the show exists is testament. But the way you go about it is it brings that curiosity that we've got, and I think curiosity is a really key bit of driving what you do. Is you're genuinely interested in this stuff. And it's kind of like you want to record shows that you think are interesting to help stimulate thought.
Yeah.
And so I like it because I take individual things from it, but actually what you're doing is prompting people to think. It's not just like listen to some facts or listen to some advice. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
True.
And so you're driving reflection.
True. That's also what I do for myself as well. I really, really like learning. That's like the thing that drives me in. When I was younger, there was this library next to my home, and my goal was to have read every single book in that library. And I mean, of course, I started with the most interesting ones, and I passed the shelves with like, I don't know, some cookbooks, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to read those too. So, well, I didn't so far, but
But I tell you what's funny. I love that story because right, one is talk about ambition. I presume you didn't finish that mission, right? Because it's
No,
quite a big
not yet.
challenge. But the bit I love about it is if you looked at what you were talking about there, right? You were going, I've got to do this. I'm going to do the interesting stuff first. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to look at right. What you didn't do is you didn't start at A and work your way through the alphabet, right? Because that would be the logical way to do this, right? You just went, I'm going to do the stuff that interests me. And I think that's really interesting because I think that points to the difference between the traditional approaches, which would be, well, we need them to imagine the mission. We want other people to read the books, right? We're going to get them to start with A. We're going to do something that's logical. But actually, what you need to do is to get people's attention. So I think that's a really beautiful story that kind of points to exactly what you were about and what you're trying to communicate, which is we have to make this engaging. And we don't, you might be lucky that some people want to start with A, but the vast majority of people, their brains don't work like that. So I think that's a really good story that just illustrates how you think.
That's true. It's very an intrinsic approach to learn something. Just, you have to find an interest in it. So that's also what I'm trying to convey a little bit with my work, yes.
We talked about the game. The one thing I know about you is that it's this experimental thing and this evolutionary thing. The game is obviously that's work. It's always going to be work in progress, right? You're always going to be refining and improving.
Yes.
So that job is never done. But what else are you looking at the moment? Because I mean, the topic is really big.
Yes.
What grabs your attention at the moment? How are you thinking about taking things forward?
I'm really about physical contact that drives the awareness. So I really like to do, for example, presentations, keynotes, exchange workshops, the workshops coupled with gamification or serious games. And we're also thinking about doing like some physical event, which has to do with interaction and games, mostly in Germany and Switzerland. But yes, you're right. I'm always evolving and finding new ways and maybe develop more games. It's probably not going to stay just with that one. And also the book that is coming out about security awareness very soon, about awareness tools.
Tell us about the book.
It's very practical. It's really just checklists, and it's only, I mean, if someone is working as an accountant, he's not gonna be reading this. It's very niche. It's really just targeting people who do awareness and who want to do it without a lot of funding or money, because in a lot of companies, it's just like that they don't get any budget to do it, and then they have to test out, but they don't have the time to experiment, as we discussed, and they might not get a lot of time to do it. So I try to condensate just all the learnings that I had over the years into like checklists and practical learnings, and also examples from real life awareness campaigns of experts in the field, so they can maybe just get their ideas from it.
And I find this super interesting because if you operate in the sort of fields we operate in, right, writing a book is a logical thing to do, right? We all get sort of, I must write a book. And one of the things I found really fascinating was that you can write for one audience, but actually a lot of the things you've talked about in there might not be so interesting for accountants, but I could see, for example, a compliance person, right, who's got nothing to do with your space, going, actually, if they thought creatively about it, right, is actually the techniques that you use to grab attention for one topic, you can think, particularly if it's one that involves following rules or processes or risk management, is you can borrow those techniques. And I think one of the things I find interesting is that like, I carry things from industry to industry or from risk to risk, or just looking at parallel ideas. So I would encourage, I'd almost be saying to compliance people, read this book for two reasons. One is you're going to learn some stuff that's going to be useful, right? It's not targeted at you, but you can still. But here's the second thing, right? If you're in an organization, awareness and attention is a limited resource.
Yes.
And so you need to understand what the other people in your organization are doing, because you're in competition with, if you're in compliance, you're in competition with cybersecurity, you're in competition with HR, you're in competition. They don't talk about it in this way, but there's only so much attention that people have.
Yeah.
And so I think this idea of, if you recognize that that's a limited thing, you kind of want your subject to have more attention than everybody else's. And so I would be saying, even if you get nothing out of it, see what they're doing, right? Understand how they're doing it, so that maybe you can either borrow or you do something different, right? There's no point in copying what they do. And so I think there's almost, it's competitor advantage. Just go have a look at what's happening in this space.
It's true. It's applicable to other fields as well. It's more about marketing. It's a lot of marketing techniques applied to security awareness, like how to find your target people and how to message them, how to communicate, how to find out why they are not doing it and ask the right questions. And
so when's that coming out?
In June. Actually,
in June.
One
wow.
month. It's already available. You can already order it online.
Perfect. Well, links to that in the show notes, and I'm going to recommend people read that because I know it's going to be a fantastic read. I think you'll end up with the same problem I had with writing books, which is you have to write this thing and then it goes to print, and your brain doesn't stop. And so there's loads of things that you would have put in the book if you'd thought of them.
True.
And so one of the things I'm pretty sure is that won't be your last book.
Yeah.
There's going to be a whole load more.
Yes, and I also, because I did like the Springer format book, and I was very forced to condense it to a certain number of pages. So that's why, there is a lot of stuff that I had to leave out as well.
Which is good, right? Because you wouldn't want to put everything in there and then you go, job done. But it's a sort of, in a way, I think there's something interesting about constraints, because when you're somebody that has lots of ideas, and my sense is that your brain is like a pinball machine with loads of things happening at once. It's kind of like the publishing constraints can sometimes be quite difficult because you're required to sort of structure thoughts. So it's good because it helps put structure. But I also think sometimes it's like, it's kind of a version of your thoughts, but there are other versions as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly. But it's also good, for example, also when you have to condense a lot of thoughts to a post on social media, for example, you get very clear words for something that you would have explained a long time, and you take your time to really formulate a short sentence that is very clear, and that's also an advantage.
And again, there's something interesting about if we look at what you do on LinkedIn, which is making people aware of what you do, and that's an awareness campaign, right? So there's a really interesting thing here which says one of the reasons that we know whether you're good or not is that if your job is teaching other people how to promote awareness, is you better be good at promoting yourself, because if you can't promote yourself, like, you obviously don't know what you're talking about. And so I think one of the lovely things is that format works really well for you, because one, you're good at what you do, but two, like, you're putting it on display every day, right? I can see whether you're good at driving awareness because you're having to do it for yourself.
Yes, exactly. I'm demonstrating my teachings.
And do you enjoy doing the social media stuff?
Yes, I do. I really like the interactions that it sparks. For example, with you, or I would have never talked to so many people. Also, of course, you get the negative stuff, but you get a lot of interesting people to speak with, to exchange ideas, and to get new inputs and arguments or counter arguments. And I think it's very valuable. I can just recommend it.
The other thing I find interesting about the social media piece is to say that if we're going to make a difference, right, and we're going to be out there, then there are going to be some people that don't like it. And they might not like it for technical reasons. They might just not like the way we look or the way we speak or the language we use or something. There's some things to be critical. And there's some people are jealous. There's a whole load of reasons why people don't like this stuff. But I kind of go, if you want to have an impact, you can't be for everybody.
Yes.
And so one of the other things I think is great is it helps you find your tribe. because you put stuff out there,
True.
and people who don't agree, there'll be people that want to argue with you because they enjoy arguments. But generally speaking, what it does is it creates back to your community. Is you're putting stuff out there and going, this is what I stand for, this is who I am. And then people know that, and therefore people that like it will go, I really love what she's about. Hence, we're having this discussion because I love what you do.
Yes.
But then there's other people that go, I don't. Well, then they don't have to. They won't call you, right? So in a way, it's like I almost look at it like a sort of magnet, which is that social media attracts the people that you want, but it can also because I don't want to. I'm sure you don't either, right? I don't want to work with people that don't share the same vision. That because you can't do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, it's okay if they want to book a man for a speaker job, then I'm not for them, as for example. But yeah, just sometimes, I mean, as many people as possible who do this things in this field, the better it is. So I don't think it's bad to have like other people who are doing their way, but also awareness. That's even better. I mean, I cannot cover the whole thing alone.
Well, and
Everyone.
I think that's a really key point here, because I get this sometimes where people go, oh, look, somebody's doing something in your space.
Yes, like competition.
And I laugh because I don't know what my space is, right? Because it keeps it changes when I work with different people and do different. And so as I look at it, I find it quite funny because people go, someone's coming, and I'm like, good, I want more people, because actually, if you're the only person,
Me too.
like particularly if you're doing something that's not normal, that's a bit counterintuitive or feels a bit weird, kind of, if you're the only person pushing this weird thing, then that makes you, here's the weirdo. But actually, if there's lots of people doing it, and to your point, it's not like this is a universal topic, right? There are every single company that uses technology and employs humans is going to have the problems that you're talking about, and the challenges that. So it's kind of like there's enough of those out there. Right?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think we should think in competition mode or something, because this topic is too important. We have to work together to make everyone secure.
I love that. I'm intrigued just about where do you get your energy from, right? Because you constantly I fully understand that social media is not always the exact same as reality, right? It's a shop window in some respects. But you seem really energized by the topic. There's a real kind of, and I'm assuming that just comes from because to use crude English, because you give a shit, right? You want to solve this. There's a mission.
Yes, very much. Yeah, that's very much the energy that I get from. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. But
it's all good. It's all good. It's my kind of weird, so it's all good.
Cool.
And how do you? I'm also intrigued. Just looking at parallels between my work and yours. One of the challenges of both compliance and what you do is it's really easy to measure failure. Right. So if we looked at phishing emails, right, how many people clicked on this thing, did something stupid, right, or did something they shouldn't have done? Let's not call it stupid.
Yes.
So you can measure that, but measuring success, because in effect you're trying to stop something from happening or encourage a better.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to measure that. And I loved as you were talking about the board game, you could say one form of success is actually here's somebody who says, oh, I now understand. Right. So we don't know whether they're actually going to change their behaviors, but we've got a greater chance of them doing it because, and at least if they've said that to you, they've taken something's resonated. But how do you think about success? Because it's really like it's a big challenge to say, I can guarantee success, because success is almost invisible.
Well, I think there are many ways to see, if you want to see it, of course, how your measures are successful. For example, I do awareness at a bank, and we did this also some form of gamification or games event. And at first, there was just a little interest in those events, and we repeated it again and again. And every time more people signed up for it. It was not mandatory. The people could just sign up for it. So, and that for me, it was already a sign that it has to work because the people are coming back and more people are interested in it, for example. That's one way to measure success of it, I think. And also how many people report something to the IT department that they see, that they think is suspicious. For example, when I started, I didn't get a lot of messages, and when I started as a security awareness, and when I always reacted positively to, for example, like the AI bots, if you ask something, they're always like, great question. And if you're like reinforcing it, then the people come back and you can measure how many things you get asked. And of course, some companies are like, we don't have time for all those questions or for that. But this is the most important interaction. If the people are seeing something that is suspicious and they are talking to you about it, then you have the best security. If every single employee is a little part of the alarm system, what's better? Yeah, and they can you can measure how many people message you about problems. For example, I got an information from someone who saw a door that was not locked, who that should have been locked, an emergency door, and they sent me the message because they thought, yeah, this is a person who should is interested in that. They could have asked anyone, but yeah, just there has to be someone who is interested. And I also, for example, introduced an awareness score, um, and there you can measure how many people are signing up for your events, how many people message you, how many people report. Just measure the positive things as well.
I love that. And I love that point, particularly that point about looking at what AI does, because I think what's the con trick, if you
Yeah,
like, of
you can
generative
model
AI is
it.
it's pretending to be human. And so the people that have designed it
Hmm.
have designed it in a way that engages. It's designed to be addictive and all those kinds of things. And so I love that
Hmm.
idea of saying, okay, this is a form of digital interaction. And so actually, if we want to communicate with people, that's a really good place to look and see what techniques are the people that have designed the AI platforms or social media or any of these things,
Hmm.
right? What are they
Yeah.
using to get people hooked? And I love that
Yeah.
thinking, because if you start to think in those terms, then suddenly you can go, oh, there's something we can borrow from that. And I think that's really
Yeah.
powerful in the work that you're doing, because that's the context in which these things are, it's people looking at a screen and interacting with what's on the screen. So why not look for other examples of interactions with the screen? I'd be looking at, I mean, we could be silly now, but like pornography or gaming or any of these things, right? That create a form of digital interaction that's very effective.
Hmm.
Don't borrow everything that they do, but there are certain bits in the way that they grab
No.
people's attention that I think super
Yes,
powerful.
you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, they have experimented enough, and we can see what works to spark the dopamine and stuff.
But then it's also right, if you're doing the opposite of that. So if your thing looks nothing like that, then that's an interesting lesson, right? So it might be there might be a good reason, but if the good reason is, well, that's the way we've always done it, then you're not interested. One of the things I thought was really interesting during the pandemic was when everybody had to leave the office and go home, was that the
Hmm.
competition for attention in the office, the competition for attention is kind of like other people in the office or the communication in the office. When we go home, suddenly you've got competition from, I don't know, the gym equipment at home or Netflix or what, right? So suddenly you're dealing in a completely different sphere of people's attention. I think as we've seen the
Hmm.
increase of some of the video social
True.
media platforms, the competition for your message isn't just your internal stuff. It's like, what other things could people
Yes.
be focusing on? And with
Hmm.
second screens, it's not, you can't control the environment anymore. And so I think there's something really
Yeah.
interesting about understanding the digital landscape and back to your earlier point, the analog, what other temptations are there and how do we compete with all of
Yes.
those?
Yeah, that's maybe also a reason why I like the physical measures best. maybe that has also to do with that.
Well, I'm a massive fan, though, because I think it's like, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, and particularly in a world where it's ironic because we're talking across screens now, but in a world where the communication is this sort of thing, actually, I think having something you can touch, and that's why I love the board, right? Because it's a physical thing that you can play and interact with, and it's human interactions in the same room.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, that people talk together. That's just the most important about it, because then we are really paying attention. We are talking to each other. We are asking questions and getting some information condensed, and not in, I don't have to watch a whole video and then see something a little bit interesting for me, and the rest is just noise. So yeah, I think that the interaction is the most important. And also there are effects if you see someone else doing something, that we work like this. We model the other people. And if we see a lot of people are talking about positive behaviors that they are doing, then I want to model them. I want to be like them.
Love it.
So that,
I think that's an amazing place to finish, Jill, because not only is that a positive message for the work you do, it's kind of a positive message for society, right? Like, we should talk more to people and understand.
yes.
So I love the fact that we've taken a tour through your work, but we finished on a very positive, uplifting note for humanity, which is kind of what all of your work is about, right? It's bringing this human touch
Yes.
to a subject where we're trying to influence human beings. Before I let you go, tell people how they can find you, what the book is called, and anything else you want them to know.
The book is called Security Awareness Tools. It's Amazon or Springer. And they can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Jill Wick, or jillwick.com is my website.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I will put links to all of those things in the show notes. I want to say thank you just for being like, there's lots of things on LinkedIn I do not like, but there's some people's content that just every time it comes, it's a scroll stopper, and yours is absolutely there. So I want to say thank you for all of that stuff. I think you do amazing work as well, by the way. So thank you for raising the standards there. But above all, thank you for being an amazing guest on the show. I've had a great time.
Thank you. Me too. Thanks, Christian.
So that's it for this episode of the Human Risk Podcast. My enormous thanks to you for listening, and of course, to Jill for appearing. To find out more about Jill, her work, her podcast, her new book, Security Awareness Tools, and the board game that we talked about, have a look in the show notes. There are links to those there. I also highly recommend following her on LinkedIn for some really interesting content. If this is your first time listening to the Human Risk Podcast, where have you been? But thank you so much for joining me. You can subscribe wherever you get your quality audio content. It's available on all of the major podcasting platforms. To discover episodes of the show that you might have missed, and there are over 300 of them now, visit the show's website, which is humanriskpodcast.com. If you like the show and have yet to leave a rating or review for it, on whichever platform you're listening to the show on, please do so. It really, really does help. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the show, but in the meantime, take inspiration from Jill's willingness to experiment. I think too often organizations stick with familiar approaches because they're safe and defensible, even when there's little or no evidence that they're actually working. And I'll see you very soon for another episode of the Human Risk Podcast.